In the heart of Boston, long before skyscrapers reached into the clouds and horns filled the streets, there stood a narrow brick shop on Liberty Street with a wooden sign that read simply, Ellis Turner, Clockmaker. Inside, the ticking never stopped. Tall clocks, desk clocks, pocket watches, carriage clocks, each one whispering the seconds of American life as they passed. But Ellis Turner wasn't just a clockmaker. He was a witness. Born in 1760, he had seen revolution, hope, fear, betrayal, reinvention, and progress tick past him like the gears of the clocks he tended. And by the time he was an old man, sitting beneath the dusty light of his shop window, America had already lived a lifetime. This story begins in 1835, when a young reporter named Jonathan Hale walked into Ellis's shop. Jonathan worked for a Boston newspaper, ambitious, restless, and convinced that history was happening somewhere else, far away from ticking clocks and wooden counters. He only stepped inside because it was raining. "Good afternoon," Ellis said without looking up, polishing the face of a brass pocket watch. His hands were steady, steadier than any young man's. Jonathan nodded. "Afternoon. I just needed shelter for a moment." "You're welcome to it," the old man said. "Time doesn't mind an audience." Jonathan smirked. "You must hear that line a lot." "Only from men who think they're too busy to listen," Ellis replied. That caught Jonathan's attention. "So," Ellis continued, "what do you do?" "I'm a journalist. I write about important things." Ellis smiled. "Then perhaps you should write about time." Jonathan chuckled. "Clockmaking isn't exactly headline material." Ellis set the pocket watch down. "My boy," he said softly, "in this little shop I have seen the country grow from a whisper to a thunderclap. Time remembers everything. Would you like to hear a story?" Jonathan hesitated. Then he sat, and Ellis began. "I was 15, Ellis said, when Boston turned into a powder keg." He described the winter before the revolution, redcoats like bloodstains against the snow. Fear and resistance hung in the air. "I worked as an apprentice for a clockmaker then. We fixed the pocket watches of merchants, soldiers, and revolutionaries alike. Time didn't care whose side you were on." One night, a tired young soldier came in, British, barely 20. His watch had stopped. While Ellis oiled the gears, the soldier confessed, "I don't hate the people here, I just follow orders." Later that same day, a local dock worker came in, American, bitter, angry. He said the same thing. "I don't hate the soldiers, I just want to live free." Ellis paused. "That's when I learned my first lesson. History is not made by villains and heroes, but by people trapped inside the moment." Jonathan scribbled notes faster than his ink could dry. Then Ellis continued. Years passed, battles were fought, the nation was born. Ellis opened his own shop, the same one they now sat in. "One day," Ellis said, "a man from Philadelphia sent me a request. He wanted a small clock designed after the Liberty Bell." Jonathan looked up. "The Liberty Bell, wasn't it already cracked by then?" "Yes," Ellis nodded, "which is exactly why he wanted the clock. He said the bell could not ring, but time still would." Ellis spent weeks shaping the miniature bell, and as he worked, he thought, freedom is fragile, but the idea of it, that cannot crack. "That clock still rings every hour, even when the bell does not," Ellis whispered. By now, Jonathan was leaning forward in silence. Ellis spoke of the Industrial Revolution, factories roaring to life, trains cutting across the countryside like iron arrows. People began racing time instead of keeping it. A wealthy railroad baron came into the shop. He slammed a golden watch on the counter. "This watch cost more than your entire shop," the man boasted, "but I don't have time to wait for repairs. I need it back tonight." Ellis worked through the darkness. Near midnight, the baron returned, exhausted but smiling. "My trains," he said, "carry goods faster than anyone believed possible." Ellis handed him the watch. "But tell me," he asked, "do your trains also carry happiness?" The Baron paused. He didn't answer. He never did. "That," Ellis said, "was when I learned the second great lesson of America. We are very good at moving fast, but terrible at asking where we are going." Then Ellis spoke of loss. His wife, Margaret, his only child, Anna. Illness had no respect for freedom or invention or ambition. When Anna died at 12 years old, Ellis stopped every clock in his shop. "For one day," he whispered, "time did not move." Neighbors came in and found the silence unbearable. Ticking, it seemed, was proof that life continued. It took me a year before I could restart the clocks, and when I did, I understood my third lesson. Time does not heal, but it teaches us how to carry the wound. Jonathan's throat tightened. The rain outside deepened. Years continued to pass. America grew, and so did its contradictions. Immigrants came seeking a dream. Enslaved people prayed for freedom still denied to them. Cities expanded, wealth exploded, inequality widened. A runaway slave once came into Ellis's shop late at night. A friend had smuggled him in. He had only one possession, a broken wooden clock. "It belonged to my mother," he said quietly. "She told me, when this clock ticks again, you will be free." Ellis repaired it. He charged nothing. "I wish I could give you more," Ellis said. "You already did," the man replied. Years later, Ellis heard whispers that the man had made it north and lived free. "That clock," Ellis said, "taught me the fourth lesson. Sometimes hope is small, no louder than a ticking hand, but it can guide a man across a continent." The rain stopped. The city outside resumed its rhythm. Jonathan closed his notebook. "You've lived through everything," he said softly. Ellis smiled. "No, I've simply listened." Jonathan asked, "What do you think of America now?" The old clockmaker looked around his shop at the hundreds of clocks, each beating its own rhythm. "I think America," he said, "is like a clock we are still building. Sometimes it runs fast, sometimes it stops, sometimes it breaks entirely, but always, always there are people willing to wind it again." He leaned forward. "And the question is not whether the clock is perfect. The question is whether we care enough to keep fixing it." Jonathan was silent. He realized that the story he thought he needed, the dramatic headline, was already here, inside a quiet shop on Liberty Street. Before leaving, he asked, "What keeps you hopeful?" Ellis Turner, now nearly blind, listened to the steady ticking filling the air, and he said, "Because every second is a chance to become better than the one before."